Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 6, 2024 meeting of the North Carolina Local Government Commission. We have an agenda that we'll follow, but before we start our proceedings, I'd ask that you join us for our Pledge of Allegiance, and then Billy, sitting in for the Secretary Marshall, will lead us in our salute to the North Carolina flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Thank you. Just a few housekeeping items. Cindy, you want to call the roll?
This is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Auditor Holmes. Go ahead and test your mic, please. For the roll call. Well, Bill Toole,
Present.
designee for Secretary Marshall today.
She's on now.
There you go. Auditor Holmes, could you just confirm your presence?
Yes, I'm here in present.
Thank you. She's participating virtually. Secretary Penny
Here.
in the room. Mr. Burns?
Here. I'm here.
Online. Thank you. Mr. Butler?
Here.
Is in the room. Ms. Harvey? Councilwoman Hoffman?
Here.
Thank you. She's participating virtually. Mr. Philbeck?
Here.
Ms. Harvey? I don't know. Okay, absent for the moment. Treasurer Falwell?
Here.
In the room. To announce members and all public listening, this meeting proceeding will be recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the Department of State Treasurer's recording public meetings policy. If everyone today will please remember to identify yourself when you are speaking. If you are participating virtually, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. The meeting will continue and audio and visual may continue to be broadcast if we have a power or AV connection issue. So just be mindful that conversations may continue to be heard by others. Today's agenda is on the website at www.nctreasurer.com. I believe an updated agenda was posted this morning with just one change of a item coming off. Today we will take all votes by roll call. Without objection of the members, your motions and seconds will be considered as yes votes unless a member indicates otherwise during the roll call. And sorry, I skipped the staff. Staff present today are Debbie Tomasco, Interim Secretary, Jennifer Wimmer, Director of Debt Management, Kendra Boyle, Director of Fiscal Management, MJ and Joa are good tech folks on the side. I'm Cindy Aiken, and thank you. Treasurer.
Thank you, Cindy. You read the conflict statement?
Oh,
Okay. Members, we have a conflict statement. You've seen the agenda. Does anyone have a conflict or an apparent conflict regarding any matter that's before it? Hearing no conflicts, should a conflict arise during our proceedings, please let me, the chair, know of those conflicts. Before we get rolling into our agenda, just a couple of little things. I'm pleased to have my wife Cynthia here with us today. Some of you have heard me describe her as the most beautiful 250-year-old woman you've ever met in your life. Because Billy, she works at Old Salem, so she wears the period uniform of 250 years ago. So she's not wearing that today, but glad that she's able to come to Raleigh today. So thank you for being here. Secondly, I think the secretary has a presentation, and would you like to go ahead and do that?
just as background, the treasurer's been asking us quite often about the status of a certain item that we've been working on.
Are you there?
It was a valve.
Huh? Show us your back. There it is. And you're supposed to say,
What is it?
What is it?
no. Starts with an E.
Oh,
What
who said
word?
that?
What is it? Let me see that.
Oh, we have,
It's the electronic meter valve thing.
You're supposed to yell out the
That's
word.
your electric, that's your new pump.
and
Yeah.
That's the new pump.
Yeah.
Gauge, yeah, water valve.
So let's all say in tandem, Eureka.
Eureka.
That pump's more.
Well done. Well, we
You know,
want
that's where the
picture
two
of that.
hydrogen bombs dropped in 61. And then just running right in Eureka.
same place.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Maybe that's why they didn't have a valve.
Anyway, so,
Can you smile for me? Thank you.
Well, then for the audience, maybe you should share with them just a brief history of Eureka.
go ahead.
You do.
We've already heard all the sewer jokes about 2 hours ago, so hopefully some of those have gotten out of their system, so to speak. Go ahead.
You know more about it in the background. All I know is that we didn't have the lift station to get it pumped from one unit to another.
I thought you were going to talk about something that happened in 61.
Oh, in 61, the B-52 came apart over Eureka in Wayne County. We came closest to having the largest nuclear accident, a hydrogen bomb. 2 of them dropped and did not explode. And there was a big anniversary this year. But you can still see a sign in downtown Eureka with a hydrogen bomb, 2 of them, and one the parachute deployed. The history of the plane, of the crew getting out, the crew of 8, 3 of them were killed. They couldn't get out. The plane came apart in the air, developed a fuel leak. Very few people are aware of. And Jack Kennedy had only been president 4 days, and he liked to have croaked because we had 2 nuclear bombs laying outside of Goldsboro, North Carolina. And one of them that went down so deep in the mud, they've never been able to retrieve it all. They've dug down about 300 feet and still don't have it. And you can see the circle around the trees. But it's an interesting story. It's called broken arrow when a nuclear device may have a mishap. It's called a broken arrow event. But Eureka is the home of the famous pump. And Dale, you tell the story about the pump. But it's an interesting story if you don't know about the 2 hydrogen bombs that dropped in Wayne County in 1961. After the plane developed a loop, because the Strategic Air Command then, we kept bombers in the air all the time, 24/7, because of the Cold War threat. In this particular, all the bombers flew across the Atlantic Ocean, circled over Europe, and then came back. And we always had crews on planes in the sky. This plane developed a fuel leak. And from that, it just went from disaster to worse to finally one of the wings came off. It's quite a story.
Well, thank you for
Not
that.
as enlightening as this is, though. Tell about the Eureka
Well, this
lift
is just something we've been trying to work on. Local Government Commission took control of Eureka, so now we have control of the only city in the United States that has an undetonated nuclear bomb in city limits. So that's one of those cities we have control over. So, go ahead.
If I may, we're having a little fun with this, but I think Kendra will provide some unit updates later on Eureka, and this really is an important step, and we're working closely with partners in the area and Fremont. So again, we sort of have fun with this, but it's a big step forward for Eureka. It's a big step forward for solving some of those problems that they're having with their sewer system to help them get them on a better path. So again, staff works hard. We like to sometimes have a little fun with things, but this is actually a serious matter that we're working really hard on, and we're really happy for the progress we're making down there. So,
Mr. Secretary, remind me, that pump was how much? How much did it cost?
They won't tell me.
It's just a meter.
How much?
It's just a
Meter,
meter.
but how much?
Because we didn't know.
We know.
It was comparatively small money, but it was
Right.
blocking a lot of progress for the
No pun
town.
intended.
It was a pun intended.
Oh, pun intended. Well, thank you, and thank you for that picture. And so we're glad to have this all taken care of. I had something else about Eureka, but we'll just let it lie. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January? Alder Holmes, sometimes Mr. Butler would talk about 1861 and 1961. He was around for both those eras. So got to listen closely to see if he says 1961 or 1861. I think he was one of the Rough Riders with Teddy Roosevelt, the original Teddy Roosevelt.
I wasn't around for either, so I will certainly listen and pay close attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Clerk is noting that Ms. Harvey has arrived and is present for the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Do I hear a motion for the January 9th meeting minutes?
I will move we approve them. I will commend Cindy for getting all the information in the minutes that pertains to the conflict of interest statement and getting that clarified. And I also make a motion that we approve them.
Second?
Second.
Second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Butler, second. Mr. Toole, Auditor Holmes.
Mike on.
I
Okay,
seconded the motion.
All right.
Billy.
Have Mr.
Okay.
Toole, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Ms. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Kilbride.
Aye.
And Treasurer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Our OPEB report is an attachment A, and looking at that report, members, you can see that Apex, our applicants, Apex, Cabarrus County, Caswell County, in Livian Housing Redefined, Mecklenburg County, Reidsville, City of Wilson, and Yakima Valley Water and Sewer District Authority, their unfunded health care pension and LEO liabilities are in the report. So that's the debt affordability, the OPEB liability report. Now we have, we're down to the agenda of debt approvals requests, and Jennifer, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, this is Jennifer Wimmer. We have one unit that it falls under the approval for the unit assistance list. It's Caswell County coming for $214,115. And this is a lease for Sheriff's Department vehicles to replace those that are aging. This is needed because of obviously being out of service, and repairs can be costly. And I will turn it over to Kendra for discussion of the unit.
Thank you, Jennifer. I just want to provide you all the information about Caswell County and why it's on the unit assistance list. In this 2020, yeah, it was in 2020, we received their, in 21, we received their fiscal year 2020 financial audit report. And that report came in, was 9 months late, and it had some internal control concerns. And that's what put it on the unit assistance list from the beginning. Since then, we had not received an audit report from them until January of this year. They have had some challenges with financial staff turnover, and as well as a failed software conversion. So they have had those challenges, but they have been able to get some assistance that has helped them turn in their fiscal year 21 audit report. They are anticipating that their 22 and their 23 will be coming in the end of March. They have, in helping them, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. They have someone there that is dedicated to help them somewhere between 16 to 20 hours a week. They are there. They also have a CPA firm that is there doing a lot of the work, and they are getting a lot of training for the finance staff that they do have now. So they feel like they are well positioned to get these audit reports caught up, and their bank reconciliations are up to date. And we are anticipating they never had any issues that we saw with their general fund in 2020 or in 21. They didn't have financial condition issues. So we feel like this debt that they're asking to issue will be funded out of the general fund, and we support that, especially in light of the public safety issues associated with leasing these vehicles.
Staff's recommendation.
I have a question. Who's the bank loaning the money?
It's a lease.
It's through Enterprise.
It's what?
It's a lease through Enterprise.
Leaks at 8%, is that it? I mean, right at 8%.
It was 7.98.
Thank you.
So our recommendation is to approve.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So
Move approval, John Byrne.
Second.
All right. Billy made the motion and Secretary Penny seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Caswell County's vehicle arrangement, Mr. Toole and Secretary Penny. Auditor Holmes.
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Yes.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
We're now on to our debt approvals and related actions surrounding our consent agenda. Does anybody request to have anything? You can ask questions about something that's on the consent agenda, but does anyone have any questions about, does anybody desire to have anything removed from the consent agenda?
I have a question. I'm not asking anything to be removed. You ready for the question?
I'd like to have something removed, Mr. Treasurer.
Sorry?
I would like to have a matter removed, Mr. Treasurer, the NCMCC matter for United Methodist Retirement Homes. I have a conflict there with bond counsel Robinson Bradshaw.
Okay. Without objection, we will remove that in honor of Mrs. Harvey. I also have some questions about that also. So thank you, Ms. Harvey. Hearing no objection, now we're on to consent agenda without that item. Mr. Butler.
On this $90 million issue for this Methodist retirement home, I'd like to see.
Wait a minute. Is that the same as the Vidian?
Through the Medical Care Commission.
All right.
C11, page C11.
Okay, thanks.
I would like for an explanation of the breakdown on the cost of insurance of $1.8 million. Who gets paid what?
Mr. Butler,
Yeah. Point of order, is that the one we removed from the agenda, from the consent agenda? Okay.
Yes, it is. I should really vote on the consent agenda and then come back to that.
All right. Hang on to your question.
Okay.
Let's, with everything going on, let's just go through it. Cabarrus County's on here. Cabarrus County Water and Sewer. Cabarrus County Water and Sewer Authority. Mecklenburg County with their bond referendum, and joining us in person is David Boyd. Okay. Joining us virtually, possibly, are David Boyd, Brian Schultz, and Dennis Acaria. The next one is City of Reedsville. City of Reedsville, C11 is the one in question. And Ms. Harvey, is it just, it's that a continuation?
Front and back.
Okay. City of Wilson, which I think some members have had some questions about. We're honored to have those folks here today. Yakin Valley Water and Sewer Authority, and various counties joining us virtually. And lastly, are some miscellaneous items. All right, we're on the consent agenda without Cypress Glen, right, Mrs. Harvey? Okay. How is that different? Just, we're not talking about that now, but how's that different than a video?
So, in Livian,
Yes.
okay. So in Livian is the Housing Authority of Charlotte. It's just a rename of that.
Okay.
Those are developer housing for low income. And then the United Methodist Retirement Home is a continuing care retirement community. So it is funded not by a developer, but by residents' entrance fees and just regular revenues of that facility.
Okay. Let's just go ahead and do this item, okay, if you don't mind. All right, and then we'll get to the consent agenda. Okay. So when I went to 4020 Shamrock Road last week in Charlotte to visit with some folks regarding some articles that had come out in the Ledger, the Charlotte Ledger, was that this?
So in Livian, the item that you're speaking of, in Livian is leasing, or the developer is leasing the land from a continuing care retirement community, but they are separate entities, and that particular land that in Livian is developing through a developer deal will house low-income residents of Charlotte.
And that's on the agenda?
No.
Okay, no.
This
Okay.
is in Greenville.
Okay. But that happens to be the Methodist, 4020 Shamrock Road is the Methodist home, retirement home.
It's a different entity that is Aldersgate.
So Aldersgate, Shamrock Road, and this have nothing to do with each other,
Correct.
as well as the video.
Correct.
Okay. Because I thought the people at Aldersgate told me that as they're moving dirt out there on the corner, that Avidian was doing the development. That's where you can see why I'm a little bit confused.
It is, but
Okay.
the only connection is the land that they are leasing.
Okay. All right. I know where I was, and I know what I heard. I know what I sent you. So I just want to make sure I was thinking about all this clearly. Okay. Let's talk about C11. Mr. Butler.
I just wanted an explanation, a breakdown of where the $1,800,000 is going as cost of insurance. Who's getting paid what?
So originally, it was $1.8 million. The feasibility study update came out earlier today. That's been revised to 1.3, but based on the estimates of 1.8, there is an underwriter's fee that takes up most of it, and that's because it's a public issuance.
Do you have the numbers for each to make up the $1.8 million?
Yes, I do.
Would you repeat them, please?
Sure. Underwriter's discount is an estimate of about $1 million. There's a bond counsel fee of $150,000. A corporate counsel for $85,000. Title fees $100,000. Underwriter's counsel $75,000. Survey $50,000. Feasibility study is $125,000. An auditor $45,000. Rating agencies $100,000. Trustee fees $17,500. Trustee council is $7,500. Printing costs $10,000. The LGC fee $8,750, and miscellaneous $13,000.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So just to be clear in my head, because it's important I stay clear. So the Methodist home on Shamrock Road borrows money through us from time to time, through the Medicare Commission.
Yes.
Okay. At the entrance of that, they're clearing a bunch of dirt. They're clearing that dirt for a project that Nvidia
In Libyan?
okay, is involved in. Okay, so they are sort of connected. But this project is in Greenville. Yes, okay. All right.
This is the United Methodist Retirement Home, Inc. that is incorporated under Aldersgate in Charlotte.
The Greenville is under the umbrella of Aldersgate.
No. It's under the umbrella of United Methodist Retirement Homes.
But isn't Aldersgate the United Methodist Retirement Home?
It's a separate entity.
I don't know. I pulled in, that's what it said. Okay. I mean, I'm just telling you what I saw. There's just been a lot of press on Aldersgate in Charlotte, and I just think it's fair that the people in Charlotte are aware of what is being said in these communities as things come before us in terms of applications. Okay. All right. Any more questions about Greenville, Cypress Glen, page C12, C11? Do I hear a motion with Mrs. Harvey abstaining to approve?
I'll move to approve Philbeck.
Thank you. Second.
Second, Nancy Hoffman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, for those who are listening, this item was removed from the consent agenda for the North Carolina Medicare Commission for the United Methodist project called Cypress Glen. Philbeck, Hoffman, motion second. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
No.
Okay. Ms. Harvey is recused. Councilman. Mr. And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on the consent agenda, and we have some guests here from Wilson. And you're welcome. I know it's a consent agenda, but there's a lot of questions about this, and I think it's fair if you just want to come up and have a seat. If you don't mind, thank you. We're still on the consent agenda, and one of the items is $73 million for the city of Wilson for a baseball facility and a team. I was hoping y'all were going to build a motocross track down there, but
We might. Let's talk.
did you bring my chandelier?
It's on reserve depending on the outcome.
Oh, okay. All right. With that, we have the consent agenda before us. Does anybody have any questions regarding this application by the city of Wilson? I'm sure they are excited to be here and excited to answer any questions anyone may have about this project.
I had a question about the financing of it, and if they would just summarize it, the project's $73 million, and in the information we received, the numbers didn't total up to 73. But I've seen some of the information in the packet, and you may want to just summarize how you're going to get to the 73 million. Pay for it.
Mr. Treasurer, if it's fine with you, I've committed myself in this
Hang on.
form.
Would you identify yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Grant Goins, the city manager of Wilson. With me is our CFO, Amy Staten, and our city attorney, Jim Cawley. And I promised the team on the way in that I wouldn't answer any question with a dollar involved in it. So I'm going to let the CFO address that question. That's okay with you.
Thank you. Let me make sure I understand the question. And is the question, you want to know the project cost for the
project
stadium? Or
costs
how
us
we
$73
repay it?
million. How are you going to get the pay for it? I mean,
How we pay for
in our
it.
printout, all we're showing is $1 million a year for 10 years and a $10 million contribution. Let's see what it says here. Or roughly $11.6 million that would come from the city of Wilson. Okay, is that right?
So let me I can walk through the details of it,
Okay.
if you don't mind. So the vast majority of it, because this is a public-private partnership, is going to come, most of it is coming from new revenues, but the vast majority of it is from new property tax revenue. So what makes this deal really work is that we have a development agreement with the developer that they're going to build a minimum of $212 million in new development, taxable new development over time. So that revenue makes up the majority of the repayment. And it's not just the city's taxes on this new development, but also the county has committed their tax on this redevelopment. So that gets put back into helping to pay for the debt. And all in, that's $57.7 million over the 25-year period.
How far long period?
25. We're also going to commit we're in our revaluation year for property taxes, and we're going to commit some of that revaluation funding to it. So that's $24.1 million. That's going to go over the 25 years, that's going to go toward this debt. We also have an agreement with our local tourism development, and they're going to give us 1/3 of their occupancy tax to go toward the repayment over the 25 years. That's $11.9 million. In addition, of course, we're going to have rent from the team. One of the things we had to be careful about, though, is we want this to be a tax-exempt financing. So in order for it to be a tax-exempt financing, the private revenue that comes into it, and this rent is private revenue, needed to be less than 10%. So we're going to have $11.7 million over 25 years that is coming from the team that's going to lease or rent the stadium. You mentioned that the county is also contributing $1 million a year for 10 years. So that is part of the repayment plan. We've got Wilson Energy is going to provide a sponsorship. That's $5 million over the 25 years. Another key component, especially in the early years for repayment, is the city owns a lot of the land that the stadium will sit on, and the sale of the land to the private developers will also be set aside and go toward mostly the early years for the repayment.
The sale of land in the vicinity of the stadium,
yes,
not the stadium.
Not the stadium, but in the vicinity of the stadium, thank you. That's about $4.5 million. Currently, we'll sell it to them at whatever the fair market value is at the time that they purchase it. It's estimated at $4.5 million. And then this is also in our municipal service district. And so there's the sales tax only in that district will also go toward repayment, and that's $3.1 million. So it's a lot of different things that are going into this for the repayment.
Who sets up the rate for the sales tax district? The city council?
The municipal service district, correct.
Municipal service district. What is that rate now?
It's 18 cents. For the property tax.
Do you know the evaluation that's in the service district?
Currently, the valuation for our municipal service district is less than $100 million. That's essentially our entire downtown. The private development commitments, not including the stadium, the private contractually agreed investment is over $200 million in that same MSD. So this is a transformational level project. Our current tax base is $100 million, and they're pledging another $200 within 7 years.
Do you have any provisions in the event anything substantially changes and you've gone ahead with it and spent the money and obligated that there's some way to get it back or get you paid or pay for it?
Yes, sir. I'll address part of that and ask the city attorney to address the other part. Obviously, the questions that you're asking have been questions that our council has been dealing with for about 18 months before we finally got all of this in an agreement that all three parties could agree to. One thing that's not unique to this agreement, but is not found in a lot of agreements, is very early on, we got got the Milwaukee Brewers to agree that they would sign a lease that matches the term of our debt, and they pay regardless of whether they
So you
play or
essentially
not.
got a take-or-pay contract.
We do with the Brewers. But more importantly, I think to your question, is what kind of agreement do we have with the third-party developer? And I'd like to defer to Jim Cawley, our city attorney, for that.
That agreement is secured by deeds of trust on the land that is targeted for the development. So any land that they have that's in the city of Wilson that's targeted for the private development, the city will hold a deed of trust. And that land will be released as the phases of the private development progress. So when they're ready to do phase one, the city would release the encumbrances on that land. When phase one's complete and they're ready to go to phase two, it'll be the same process.
Mr. Treasurer, I have a question about that.
Yes.
In those deed of trust, would it be an event of default if the development doesn't occur on schedule, such that the city would be able to implement the deed of trust?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And may I also just, since I've got my mic on, I just for the record want all the people of the county I used to represent to note that if I vote in favor of this particular vote of this debt obligation, I am in no way saying that I agree with moving my minor league baseball team away from my stadium, but I'd be voting as to whether y'all have met the requirements. And I do wish Wilson the best of luck. I just, as a baseball fan, I had to say that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions virtually?
I just want to ask this question because in public, is there anything lurking that may change any of this that you have knowledge of or the council has knowledge of?
I think we've all been looking at today as the final chapter in this. What I can tell you is that if the question is maybe pertaining to public support or acceptance, I can tell you that our city council is very diverse, including politically. Our county commissioners are very diverse, including politically, and our tourism board, and all three voted unanimously. There was not a single vote on any of those three parties that didn't.
My question wasn't necessarily about the political spot, was is there anything that you think may not's going to happen or may is going to happen that has not been fully disclosed? And the reason I ask that, because we're involved in another public-private partnership that we approved, and now there's new developments being talked about that could affect that public-private partnership that we've signed off on. And I'm asking you in open session, is there anything that has not been fully disclosed?
I would answer it this way. With a project of this magnitude, you cannot anticipate everything that's going to happen or occur. But we have done everything we can to anticipate the steps involved, the commitments involved. And we have a plan laid out to implement this if it's approved. Certainly you can have any number of eventualities or contingencies, but nothing that we are aware of that should be disclosed at this time that would bear on that plan.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Thank you. I've got several, and I think it'll be easy to answer these. Did any part of this transaction involve eminent domain? And some of these questions we're asking is because people are calling us, wanting us to ask these questions. So we're sort of advocating for the invisible here. So,
understood.
Yeah, I'd like to address that. Very early on in this process, I met with the council in closed session to see whether or not they would be interested in pursuing this. And there were a couple things I wanted to make them aware of before they reached a decision. But the first one I wanted to make them aware of is that the timeline for the team did not allow for a referendum. I think my council as most councils would prefer to do referendums when possible. But they have to be ready to throw the first pitch in 2026. And when you do the math, had we required a referendum, we would have eliminated ourselves from consideration. So I wanted to make sure the council was okay with that. And the second thing was I asked them, we have a long tradition of not condemning property. I've been with the city 20 years, the city attorney longer than that. And other than maybe a utility line easement or something, we just buy, even though local governments have that authority, our council doesn't like to exercise it and certainly didn't want to exercise it for this purpose. But the team needed to know if they would be willing to do it. The council said only under extreme circumstances, and we acquired every piece of this property without any condemnation. We believe that we probably paid more than we maybe would have if we had used that authority, but the council felt like that was a price that they were willing to pay tonight. They just didn't want to condemn.
I should know the answer to this question, but I'll just humiliate myself a little bit. It was not a referendum, but given the size of this, would there ever be an opportunity to go, even after it's built, for a referendum and take out debt at cheaper prices?
There's nothing that prohibits us from doing that.
Okay. Another quick, any property the city owns, when you dispose it, is it subject to upset bid?
Yes.
So you didn't draw a circle around this and said that you don't have to honor the upset bid process?
So in fact, on the stadium property itself, we walk through the upset bid process.
And who is it's a private-public partnership. Who's the partner?
It's called NSV, New South Ventures Development.
Okay. And what is that? I know what it stands for. You've told us, but what is it? Who does that really represent? People who do this all over the country, or?
They have a history, and the manager could probably elaborate a little more than I can. They have a history of development in Kannapolis, Fayetteville, around Durham, around ballparks.
And in Wilson, which was important to our council. They just completed the largest multifamily development in Wilson, a 250-unit luxury apartment complex downtown beside our new YMCA. And they also managed the parking deck construction, even though the city owns it. They were our project manager on that. And in the middle of unbelievable construction inflation, they delivered the project ahead of schedule and under budget. So they have a pretty good reputation with our council. And it's not an unknown party because we've dealt with them in the past.
Honor people who play baseball. It's dependent on the Brewers, Milwaukee Brewers.
Or what's the question?
I mean, this is a AA team for the Brewers.
Single A.
Single A. As were the Mudcats.
Brewers purchased the Mudcats a few years ago.
Yes.
Okay. So we have our own negative history in Winston-Salem with a baseball stadium where there was a private-public partnership where the city did not cure the deed, literally. And so when there was a balloon, the guy says, there's no lien on this anywhere. And it really had him over a barrel for a very long period of time, and it cost the heck out of the city of Winston-Salem. So is there any lessons learned from whether it's Winston-Salem or any of these other really negative situations regarding baseball stadiums that you've been able to keep out of this deal?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've learned is not to necessarily study the successes, but to study the places where we've had some problems. And you've mentioned a name, and I'll tell you that's one that we've studied. There are other North Carolina examples that have had some problems that we've studied as well. So we didn't limit our research to the numerous success stories, but we also researched, and hopefully we believe we've learned from those that have gone before us, and we've tried to apply those safety measures into our agreements.
Isn't there some bad things going on in Cabarrus with their team?
I didn't want to call the name, but there are. example that you're speaking of is not affiliated minor league baseball. It's some independent league, and the ownership group was not a Major League Baseball team. It was some other type of conglomerate. I don't know how this board feels, but certainly my city council took much more comfort in the fact that this was a minor league team owned directly by the Major League team, and the Major League team is guaranteeing the contract. So we have full guarantee from the Milwaukee Brewers, not some middle man or agency that owns a large number of teams. And all of our negotiations have been in Milwaukee with the president and vice president of the Brewers. There's not been a go-between.
Sure. But NSV put that deal together.
NSV was raising a capital stack for this 250 unit apartment complex, and one of the major investors happened to be from Milwaukee, and they fell in love with Wilson while they were there, and we had no idea that they were affiliated with a baseball team. They just liked Wilson, and then we found out after the fact.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions. Anyone else have any further questions?
The development group, do they have kind of a core group, a development company within Wilson that's been affiliated with these other investors, or is this just a total outside investor group that's doing this?
They have local participation as well.
So you do have like a local development group that's tied in with all of this?
Any other questions? Mr. Burns, you seem to have been involved in these in the past, so any further questions from you?
No, I just wanted to make sure folks, I'm voting on whether this particular project has met what it needs to meet, and I wish the city of Wilson well. I just, as a Mudcats fan, it's going to be hard to have them along a lot further away than they currently are, but I get it. I just wanted to note that.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, I've communicated with my colleague in Zebulon, and I think they're clear. We didn't go recruit the Mudcats at all. It was the Milwaukee connection that invested.
No, minor league baseball kind of made this happen by changing their standards for teams. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope everything works out.
Thank you.
And Mr. Burns, I'm not going to belabor this, but did the LGC board approve the stadium for the Mudcats at some point in time?
I can't remember. I wasn't on the Board of Commissioners when that happened. I think funding went through to repair and upgrade the scoreboard while I was there, but that I think went through our local projects fund that comes in through our use tax and entertainment tax. But so I'm not sure if that goes through the LGC or not. I assume it did, but I wasn't on the board at the time.
That would have been about 91, because actually the Mudcats played their first season in Wilson while they were waiting for that stadium to be completed.
Yeah, they upgraded the scoreboard back in, I think, 2014. But I'm not sure. I wasn't really involved in that.
Okay. And will this result in any tax increase for city or county taxpayers?
So what we decided to do, no county, I don't believe, has been projected, and we contemplated this because the economic models that we've had run by the University of Michigan and the economic consultants that we've looked at this suggest that we are being extremely conservative on our tax base estimates, and that it probably will. But we erred on the side of full disclosure and had a forum for our community and a public hearing, of course, as required by law. But we projected 2 cents. We don't know that we'll have to use it, but we'd rather tell the community to expect that and then be able to deliver good news than not to project it and have to implement it. So the public support that we gained was after we projected a 2-cent impact. We're hoping not to implement it.
All right. Thank you for, I don't know quite what you were prepared for, but I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I will not ask if you ever got paid for the easement work you did in Eureka.
I thought it was interesting you started out talking about it.
That may be where it ended up.
Still got a big bill.
Huh?
Still have a big bill there.
I have a good memory, Don.
Yes, sir, you do.
Okay. I don't forget. So anyway, thank y'all for presenting. You have the consent agenda in front of you. Absent the one we just voted on, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. Before we do that, I just want to recognize Tony, Melissa, Floyd. Thank you. They're the ones that did all the work on Mecklenburg County, which involved several meetings and several trips and several phone calls and several lots of things to get to this point. So I just wanted to recognize the work that all three of you did on this project.
Largest ever to come before the LGC.
Oh, go ahead.
And it's the largest ever item to come before the LGC at $2.5 billion. So it was a big team effort and a lot of work. So
Also, I'd like to add, Mecklenburg, I have two children in public school, grandchildren in public school. I know the treasurer wants me to say great-grandchildren, but they're really grandchildren. And we're very grateful for what's getting ready to happen in the school system. Thank you.
Okay, motion is second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, just to remind everyone, consent agenda included the Cabarrus County item through the 4 miscellaneous action items, ending with the last 2 for improved housing. Motion, Secretary Penny, second by Mr. Toole. Auditor Holmes.
Hi, and I'll just note for the record that while I very much look forward to watching this bond and all this it's going to do for the public education system in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, I will note just for the record that it is the state's second largest school system behind Wake County.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Council, skip Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you.
We're now to our second student updates.
Anytime.
We have 4 votes that we need in regards to units that we have assumed financial control over. The first of which is in Eureka. And the vote that we need in Eureka is to accept the final asset inventory assessment report. And that report was identified all the needs that the town had and suggested a full replacement of their system. So this vote is just to accept that report. And I don't know, do we want to go through each one vote individually or vote yet?
Put it all at one time.
Okay.
Without objection. Hearing none, go ahead.
Okay. So, and then of course you heard the update on Eureka that we have a flow meter. Yeah. So,
Oh, Shotty missed the presentation, Shotty. Huh?
Vic.
Oh, Vic, sorry.
He's laying in the back.
Here for Shotty.
So also we're going to need a vote for Kingstown, and that is to retain most of the finance officer and deputy finance officer we have, but also to remove one person off of the list of deputy finance officers and as account signatory. So that one is fairly simple. And then on Spring Lake, we have 2 budget amendments that we need to ask for your approval on, and those have to do with 3 things that have happened in the town. One is that when the investment earnings were budgeted in June of this year for this fiscal year, they were budgeted fairly conservatively, and we have found that year to date, well, through December, the actual earnings we've already realized about 93% of what was budgeted. So So the estimate is that the town will receive in investment earnings probably another $84,000. So the town is asking to record that increase in revenue, expected revenue in the budget, and then that will help offset the fact that a lease for some rental income has been terminated. That was a lease where T-Mobile was renting some space on their water tank for cellular transmissions, and they no longer need to do that. So that lease will result in a loss of about $24,000. So, and then also the town has realized that their estimate for the fee for credit card payments from customers in the water and sewer fund, that amount was much lower than what they're actually going to cost. They said, credit card payments from customers are much more than what they expected them to be. The volume of credit card payments is more, and therefore the fees are more. So they have asked to increase that in their water and sewer fund. The other amendment that's needed is to record the revenue and expenditures associated with a new program that they are implementing, which is a military banner program, where people can come and purchase a banner to be displayed on the town main street. So those are the items that they're asking to have amended in their budget. Do we have any questions?
All right, do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation on those 4 voting items?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
That's good harmony. It was so good I couldn't tell who said it.
I'll defer to Mr. Burns.
You beat me to the deferral. I'll take it. Second.
Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
You are voting on the resolution to accept the AIA study for Eureka, modifying deputy finance officer and account signatories for Kingstown, and 2 budget ordinance amendments for Spring Lake. Motion Butler, second Burns. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler. Oh, sorry. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye. Okay. Now we're on to 8. Item 8, resolution adopting evaluation criteria for grants from viable utility reserve, attachment E.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. To provide a little bit of background or refresher on the viable utility reserve, back in 2020, under Session Law 2020-79, that viable utility reserve was established. And under that legislation, it assigned some new responsibilities and authority to the LGC. Two main parts of that were, one, to designate units as distressed, and we'll be cycling back and doing that again this spring. You'll be seeing that later this year. Another large new authority given to the LGC was to approve grants out of the viable utility reserve. Under that legislation, it also required the State Water Infrastructure Authority and the LGC to establish criteria to evaluate grants from that viable utility reserve fund. So that's a little bit, again, catch up sort of history of where this started. Recently, under the 2023 appropriations bill, there were a couple things that addressed the viable utility reserve and the program. One was something we've talked about before, was that Eureka was provided a $20 million directed grant to address some of their issues. It also appropriated $10 million to just the viable utilities reserve in general. And also made 2 changes to that original, to those changes through Session Law 2020-79. One is it removed the 3-year limitation on emergency operating grants. and the other is that it modified the criteria that had to be adopted by the authority and the commission for evaluating grants. And so that brings us to today. The resolution in front of you is to update those criteria for evaluating grants from the viable utility reserve. And again, just please remember that this is just from the viable utilities reserve fund. Grants in general aren't necessarily or usually approved by the LGC. Loans would be, again, depending on the type of loan, but generally it's these VUR grants that require LGC approval. So back in 2020, we established some initial criteria for those grants. And now, based on these requirements under these changes to legislation and the appropriations bill, we're circling back to modify those criteria. So essentially what we're doing is looking to change the, and I should back up, all these changes, again, the criteria, all of this is generally joint authority between the State Water Infrastructure Authority and the LGC. So some of these changes that we're making to respond to the requirement under the appropriations bill are changes actually to the priority rating system that's used by DEQ to rank these and evaluate these grants. So the State Water Infrastructure Authority has already seen these changes. They've voted on them. They've approved them. We're bringing them to you now, and from there they'll go to public comment as is required under DEQ's requirements. So we're just looking, the appropriations bill is basically requiring us to look at these evaluation criteria specifically for units under LGC control. And so the changes that we're recommending would give units under LGC control priority points under that priority rating system if the projects are addressing essentially the viability of these systems, or if there's the units have been receiving emergency operating grants. It would basically help prioritize those units to get them funding so that they can address the needs that have led these systems to be distressed and have led in a lot of cases to these units having financial challenges because of the challenges associated with their water and sewer systems. We do have folks from DEQ with us today from the Division of Water Infrastructure if there's other questions, but that is the resolution that we have before you today, is just to update those criteria for evaluating grants from the viable utility reserve.
Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Have we got some language in there that DEQ comes to, they rule first and then come to us, not send it to us and we decide and send it to them?
Well, this resolution is just about the criteria for the award of grants, and DEQ has, the State Water Infrastructure Authority has already approved this language. And again, because of the statute requires the LGC and the authority to adopt criteria, so they've essentially already adopted the criteria. It's now in our court, and from there it'll go to public comment. And assuming there is a final provision in here that assuming there's no modification by the authority or no modification to these criteria because of public comment, these will then be final. So the authority has already approved these in September.
But when all that's done, I mean, when all that's done, signed, approved, everything else, aren't we as a body hoping that DEQ is going to come to us after they've approved it and not asked us to approve it first?
The criteria for the legislation requires that the criteria for evaluating the evaluation criteria for grants, the statute requires that the authority and the commission both approve it, and the authority has already approved this, and so it's now to the commission to consider and vote on.
This is the language, the bill that's advocating a lot of regional programs being put together, like our photograph here with Eureka, our pump is part of a regional system in Wayne County. Isn't that the same body, same source of money that we're talking about?
The Eureka, specifically the money for Eureka, will be coming from a directed grant in the 2023 appropriations bill. was other funding and a significant amount of funding through the Viable Utilities Reserve Program, ARPA money primarily, that has been awarded under the VUR program in addressing either individual system needs or potentially, yes, regional solutions. Because the intent of the legislation was to address and work towards long-term viability for some of these struggling systems. So in a lot of cases, that long-term viability is going to come through regionalization.
Who's here from DEQ?
And we can, do you want to come up?
Sure, I'm happy to come. I think maybe I can help answer Mr. Butler's question, but I think what you're asking is when it comes to grants in the future, I think we've established that SWIA would approve those grants first before they come to this body.
I don't remember us having a staff of water experts.
Exactly. So, Vic D'Amato, Supervisor, Viable Utilities Unit, Division 1.
How, have you had any success with your regional approach yet?
We have, I think we have lots of success.
Yes, and just so to preempt Vic a little bit, just so you know, next month we will actually have a presentation on some of the successes with some of the grant program, the study grants and study grant programs. And there are a number of regional programs on partnerships underway right now.
We will, the division, so that will be delivered by Environmental Finance Center based on their report, but we will also be prepared to give you updates, specific updates on those partnerships and construction versus study grants and other things you've expressed interest in.
Well, you know, as you've heard me say before, I chaired the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority, was there starting it and putting it together. It's no easy lift. It's not an easy lift.
Any other questions? Okay. We need to vote on this?
I just have one question, Mr. Treasurer. Looking at the priority points discussion in the resolution, and there's a mention in section 1 there of applicants being required to participate in pre-application meeting with the department and commission staff. Is there a set agenda for that, or would that just be an introductory meeting to discuss any concerns?
Sure. First of all, great question, and we do meet regularly with our counterparts from local government commissions, so I don't think we will be any surprises in those meetings, but it does kind of borrow from some other similar priority points that we have in our priority rating system, and that we require just the applicant, the department to get together and agree that yes, this is eligible for those points, so that we're not faced with an application that we can't award those points for.
And again, just to reiterate, these are just criteria that would apply only to units under LGC control. So as Vic said, our staff is already extremely engaged with DWI staff with all these units with their water and sewer issues. So this would just be an extension of those continued discussions. So.
Any other questions? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Auditor Holmes.
Thank you. Motion second being made. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
We adopt the resolution which adopts criteria for reviewing applications and awarding grants VUR specific to units under LGC control. We have a motion by Councilwoman Hoffman, second by Auditor Holmes. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Okay. Next is the Environmental Finance Center.
Cindy for SEI.
Oh, we've already done that.
Nope.
Oh, it's just presentation.
She's got to mention.
Go ahead.
Okay. This this is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Just call the members' attention to the attachment F like fish. Just the copy of the Statement of Economic Interest Evaluation Letter from the State Ethics Commission for Auditor Holmes. And this is being provided for your review. We'll use in the meeting minutes pursuant to the State Government Ethics Act. Members, as a reminder, everybody review your own situation periodically to remind yourselves of your duties to search for and identify actual potential conflicts of interest. And we note that this evaluation just noted 2 entities that Auditor Holmes is associated with. Just in the event any of these ever were involved in some matter that came before the LGC. Probably not too likely in this case, but they point them out. And in her Auditor Holmes' case, we have the North Carolina Foundation for Public School Children, and she's associated with a firm called New North State Consulting, LLC. Again, just we do this routinely every time the SEIs are due and reviewed by the Ethics Commission staff, and just add it to the minutes. If there's no questions, that's it from me. Thank you.
Any other business? Next meeting is. Okay. Before we adjourn, just a couple of things. You may be hearing across the state. I heard about 3 different school districts this morning that are involved in cost-cutting measures, possibly related to using one-time money for ongoing operating expenses, and now that money is running out. So just be aware of that as you listen to the radio or watch the news, because it's really, really disruptive to especially school system employees, for the people they depend on to manage their money, manage their finances, and put in place a system so that they start out like they hold out, and then this money is all gets used for, and then there's no money there to pay the individuals once this one-time money runs out. So just be aware of that. Secondly, we issued our debt affordability report last week, and it shows nearly a 60% reduction in general obligation debt over 8 years, and on its way to 80% over a little longer period of time. In that report, somewhere along the way, I guess before I was here, this board approved through us and through the Council of State issuance of general obligation bonds, and some of those bonds became available as a result of the bankruptcy of Silicon Valley Bank. So I worked with LGC staff, legal, compliance, Christian Walker, the budget director at OSPM, as well as the financial advisor, and we were able to buy back about a $20 million piece of those bonds for $14 million. People say the real context of things, that's just such a small amount of savings. It's about 11 or $12 million, including the interest, because now we own them, we're going to retire them. And I'm telling you to say that it's just pennies and paper clips. That's what we do. And so I just appreciate staff putting us in a position to make that jump up on the table. We also got a provision in the budget and some financial flexibility so that some of our pre-refunded opportunities over the next couple of years that we're going to be able to retire that debt also. And just for your information, we only enter into those transactions if the net present value to us is a positive number relative to what we can earn on that money in the investment management division. So one piece of news just to be aware of. Another piece of news, which is good news, was talking to the former chief of staff for Harlan Bowles, who said he doesn't recall any treasurer being able to buy back our own general obligation paper at a discount. So with all the history of this office, it was fun to do something no one else has ever done before. So anybody going around robin, anybody have anything else they'd like to offer, starting with the virtual members?
Yes, Treasurer Farwell, can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
I just wanted to personally thank you for your request to the North Carolina Industrial Commission regarding a line of duty compensation for Sergeant Dale Nix. We really appreciate that. I think you did it the day after or within a day or two of his memorial service, which was extremely moving. And, I think I speak for myself personally, but I think our city council, our city staff, our police department, and our community as a whole would thank you for this.
Thank you. And just briefly, because I got asked about this by the press today, what's the difference in killing the line of duty and being murdered in the line of duty? And there's big differences. You could be in a traffic accident and be killed in the line of duty. But we asked for the double part of this, which is not only killed in the line of duty, but murdered in the line of duty. So,
which is a total of $200,000 to the family. That's approved.
Right. And I'm not saying anything that violates any confidentiality, but it's no secret except for Winston-Salem PD and Charlotte Fire. We manage the systems for all these public service employees, and we've been working very closely with the widow and the family and the assistant chief and the assistant chief, just to make sure things are tick and tied in terms of his direct benefits without this industrial commission application. So we're in the process of getting all that lined up also. So thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Butler.
It is a real learning experience to be on this thing, to know what's going on in the state of North Carolina. I share it with my friends down east all the time that are amazed at what the LGC does. And of course, the LGC's been quite active in the Wilmington area with some of the projects we've been involved in. But I want to commend the treasurer on the job he does, and his leadership and energy is to be envied by, certainly by me and by all of us. I would, as some of y'all have heard me, I use the word mission creep, which is used in the military a lot. The water and sewer thing is a new responsibility that's been added to the LGC since I've been on the board. Also, the legislature, we now have the responsibility of taking the charters away from communities, which that was a mission creep example that it appears to me in the short time that I have been on the board that because of the credibility of the local government commission and its history in the state of North Carolina, it seems like more and more entities or efforts want to get the stamp of approval of the LGC. We hadn't had one go south on us yet. And then, as I've said before, we are the last line of defense. Once it gets through here, it is gone. It is scot-free. So I hope we all remember that. We are the last line of defense.
Secretary. Billy. With that, I, Alter Holmes adjourned the Council of State meeting this morning in honor of Black History Month. I think to tie in what Mr. Butler says and in the spirit of former Congressman John Lewis, seems like sometimes every day at the LGC we get into good trouble by asking tough questions. We also learn and are often reminded about what my neighbor in Winston-Salem used to always say, Maya Angelou, when a person shows you who they are the first time, you should believe them. So I'm sure with Secretary Marshall, some of these entities have have come around 2 or 3 times during her tenure. So, Ms. Holmes, Secretary Penny, if you'd like to make the motion in second, if given what you said this morning or add anything to that, Ms. Holmes, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Treasurer Falwell, for giving me this opportunity and supporting my motion this morning to adjourn the Council of State meeting in honor specifically of State Auditor Ralph Campbell, who was the first African-American to serve on the Council of State and the first African-American to serve specifically as State Auditor. In recognition of Black History Month, Governor Cooper also he sort of expanded that motion to include African-American leaders across this state currently serving in public office. So I will end this meeting the same way that I did with the other one, asking that we adjourn this meeting in general in honor of African-Americans and our contributions to this country and to our state.
As a personal friend of Ralph Campbell, I'd like to second the motion. We served, our fathers actually ran an auto shop together, and I serve on the vestry of the church that he attends, and we worked together when I was state personnel director. So I second the motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion is second being made. Clerk, call the roll.
All right, to adjourn in honor of, that was wonderful. I can't repeat it all. Thank you.
In honor of Black History Month,
And all of the leaders.
African-American leaders, present and past, specifically Ralph Campbell. Belonged to Auto Body Shop with his dad.
Yeah.
His
I
dad.
love it. I love
His
it.
dad, my dad, came back from World War II. All right.
I love it.
This can't be good. Who let the retirement people in here?
You need us to pause.
Okay, all right. You can call the roll, please.
Well,
Retirement
let's
people
check.
just cause any trouble.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Toole.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
And Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Ms. Harvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.